My family never stole a single dollar from me. I gave every cent willingly. But still, I wasn't supposed to see the notebook. It was lying open on my mother's dressing table. I almost looked away. Then I noticed the date. It was always the day after I sent money home. I turned the page, then another, then another. Every month, there was another list. Bone straight hair, George material. I stared at the page, waiting for it to make sense. It didn't, because nobody had ever asked me to pay for any of those things. Then I noticed something else. Every list had already been written before my money arrived, not after, before. That's when I realized my family wasn't hoping I would send money. They had already planned how to spend it before I even opened my banking app. For 12 years, I thought I was helping the people I loved. I thought every transfer paid school fees, hospital bills, family emergencies. I thought every sacrifice brought us closer together. I was wrong. The hardest part wasn't the notebook. It was realizing they had stopped seeing me as their daughter. Rather, I became the cash cow of the family. But to understand how one notebook unraveled 12 years of sacrifice, we have to go back to the day I left home. 12 years earlier, none of this had happened yet. I was 22, standing in an airport with one worn-out blue suitcase, a scholarship, and enough hope to last a lifetime. Everyone kept calling me lucky. They said I was changing my family's future. I believed them. The morning I left, my mother cried so much she could barely speak. My younger sister, Olachi, refused to let go of my hand. My little brother, Chidi, slipped a tiny keychain into my palm. So you don't forget home. I still have it. My father hugged me quietly. Then he handed me a folded note. Open it after the plane takes off. That was all he said. When I unfolded it in the air, it read, "Go and become the woman we always knew you could be. Just don't forget the road that brought you there." I folded it carefully and kept it in my wallet for the next 12 years. The first few months abroad were harder than I ever admitted. During the day, I studied. At night, I stocked supermarket shelves until 2 in the morning. Weekends disappeared into cleaning offices and taking extra shifts. Some nights, I was too exhausted to eat. Then I'd call home. Hearing my mother's voice made everything feel worthwhile. At first, the calls were simple. "How are you? Have you eaten? Don't worry about us. Just focus on school." Then one evening, about 4 months after I arrived, my mother called in tears. "Your father isn't well. The doctors needed more tests. Money was tight." She kept apologizing for asking. She never finished the sentence. The next morning, before I paid my own rent, I sent the money. It felt like the easiest decision I'd ever made. He was my father. Of course I would help. When my mother called to say the transfer had arrived, she cried. My father thanked me once, then changed the subject. I remember hanging up, feeling proud, useful, like maybe I really was changing my family's future. I just didn't realize that first transfer would become a monthly expectation. The second transfer came 6 months later. Olachi had been accepted into university. She called me herself. She was crying so hard I could barely understand her. "Mommy said I should tell you first." I cried too. My little sister was going to university. It felt like our family's future was finally changing. The registration fees were due the following week. I sent the money before she even asked. That moment changed something. Not in me, in everyone else. Because after that, the requests never really stopped. The roof needed repairs. Chidi needed exam fees. The generator broke. A cousin was getting married. There was always another emergency. Always another reason why this one transfer had to happen. Meanwhile, my own life quietly stood still. Friends traveled. I stayed home. My old car kept breaking down. I kept repairing it. I worked overtime, picked up weekend shifts, told myself next year will be easier. It never was. Then one evening, something happened that should have made me ask questions. I offered to pay Olachi's university directly. There was a long silence. Then my mother laughed. "Oh no, it doesn't work like that. They only accept local payments. I didn't question it. I sent the money. Looking back, that was the first lie I ever believed. A few years later, my mother called again. This time, she sounded terrified. The doctors thought my father might have dementia. I didn't ask for reports. I didn't ask for receipts. I only asked, how much? Because when the people you love are hurting, logic becomes a luxury, and love writes the check. By my 12th year abroad, sending money wasn't a decision anymore. It was a habit, one I never imagined would eventually lead me back home. 12 years later, I finally booked my ticket home. I filled my suitcase with gifts: chocolate, perfume, a smartwatch for my father, a hollandaise wrapper for my mother. Something special for everyone. For the first time in years, my money wasn't solving a problem, it was bringing me home. When I walked through the airport doors, my mother ran straight into my arms. She cried, I cried. For a moment, every sacrifice felt worth it. The drive home was everything I'd imagined. The familiar roads, the markets, the laughter, even the smell of home felt exactly the way I remembered. That first evening, the compound was full of family. Neighbors stopped by. Children I'd never met called me auntie. We laughed until late into the night. I went to bed thinking maybe I'd worried for nothing. The first 2 days were beautiful. Then, little things started happening. Olachi pointed toward the back of the compound. We're almost done. I turned around. A brand new extension had been added to the house. Fresh paint, new windows. I stared at it. When did you build this? She frowned. I thought Mom told you. Then she quickly changed the subject. That night, I couldn't stop thinking about it. How do you build half a house without ever mentioning it? The next day, one of my cousins laughed and said, "We're used to your money arriving before you do." I laughed too, but something about that sentence stayed with me. Over the next few days, I noticed something else. Whenever anyone talked about money, their eyes found me. Nobody asked. They didn't need to. The silence did it for them. Then, on my 5th morning home, I walked into my mother's bedroom looking for a phone charger. She wasn't there. The charger was. So was an open notebook. I wasn't trying to read it. Then I saw one word, written neatly across the top of the page, Amara, and underneath it, a date, the day after my monthly transfer. I don't know why I picked it up. Maybe curiosity, maybe instinct. I opened the first page. At the top was a date, the day after my monthly transfer. Underneath it was a list. Hollandaise wrapper, George material, bone straight hair, generator fuel, catering deposit. I stared at the page. None of those things had ever been mentioned to me. Then I turned another page. Another month, another list. Different items, same date. Always the day after I sent money. It wasn't a budget. It was a plan. They already knew the money was coming. I quietly closed the notebook, then walked outside. Nothing had changed. Children were laughing. My mother was hanging clothes. Life carried on. Only, I was seeing it differently. That afternoon, I stopped listening to what people said. I started listening to what they assumed. Every conversation somehow found its way back to money. Nobody asked me directly. They didn't have to. They all expected I'd offer. 2 days later, Olachi asked me to help clear out some old boxes. We laughed as we sorted through old notebooks and school papers. Then she smiled and said, "I can't believe I dropped out 4 years ago." I froze. "Dropped out?" She nodded. "I thought Mom told you." My heart started pounding. For 4 years, I'd been sending university tuition, every semester, on time. For someone who wasn't even in university, I couldn't even bring myself to ask where the money had gone. The next morning, I found my father sitting beneath the mango tree. I sat beside him. Then I asked, "Dad, how's your memory these days?" He looked confused. "My memory?" "The dementia." He frowned. "What dementia?" I laughed nervously. "Mom said..." He shook his head. "I've never had dementia." In that moment, 12 years of explanations collapsed into one terrifying question. If my father had never been sick, where had all the money gone? That evening, I looked at my family across the dinner table. Nobody knew what I had discovered. Nobody looked guilty. They laughed, they talked, they passed food around the table, and for the first time, I realized something. The hardest lies to uncover are the ones everyone else has stopped thinking of as lies. The family dinner was supposed to be my last happy memory before flying home. For one beautiful hour, I almost forgot everything. The notebook, Olachi, my father, the lies. I was simply someone's daughter again. Then my uncle Opena stood to give a toast. He thanked everyone for what they'd done for the family. My mother, my father, Chidi, Uncle Ude, Auntie Ego, everyone. I smiled, waiting to hear my name. It never came. For the first time, I understood what 12 years of carrying everyone had made me. Invisible. A few minutes later, Auntie Ego smiled at me. My daughter, God will continue to bless your hands. I thanked her. Then she nodded toward the new extension. Now that you're home, everyone can finally discuss the next phase. I frowned. The next phase? She looked surprised. You mean nobody told? Before she could finish, my mother appeared beside us. She gently took my hand. Amara, come and help me for a minute. Then she turned to Ego. Ego, can you help me in the kitchen? Ego nodded and walked away. As my mother led me aside, she smiled warmly. You know, everyone is just so happy you're home. She squeezed my hand. After everything you've done for us, God will continue to bless you. She spoke so gently that anyone watching would have thought it was simply a mother's affection. But I couldn't stop thinking about what Ego almost said. What was the next phase? The following morning, I woke before everyone else. As I walked toward the kitchen, I heard voices on the veranda. We should ask her before she leaves. She'll help. She always helps. We've already spoken to the contractor. We only need the balance. And Chidi's business still needs capital. I stood frozen. Nobody had asked me. They were planning my money before I'd even offered it. That afternoon, my mother asked if I could help her prepare dinner. For a few quiet minutes, we chopped vegetables together. It almost felt normal. Then she said, your cousin's traditional wedding is next month. I nodded. We're a little short. She looked at me. I thought maybe you could help. For 12 years, my answer had always been the same. This time, it wasn't. No. She looked genuinely confused. No? I shook my head. I can't. The room fell silent. Then she said quietly, you know, people here work hard too. She kept chopping vegetables. It's not like you carried this family by yourself. Then came the sentence that hurt most. Sometimes the way you send money makes people think you believe you're better than everyone who stayed. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything, that was the story they told themselves? I didn't argue. I asked one question. Mom, if I had stopped sending money 10 years ago, would you still have been this happy to see me? She didn't answer. She simply looked down. The knife stopped moving. And somehow, that silence told me everything. That night, I changed my flight. I wasn't angry. I was finished. As the taxi pulled away 2 days later, my mother stood at the gate waving. I waved back, because she was still my mother. But I finally understood something. Loving people doesn't mean giving them unlimited access to your life. The flight home felt very different. 12 days earlier, I'd boarded that plane carrying gifts. Now, I was carrying the truth. Somewhere over the Atlantic, I opened my banking app one last time. Month after month, year after year, transfer after transfer, until I reached the very first one. I stared at it for a long time. Then I closed the app. Not because I regretted helping. I don't. I'd do it again. Just not the same way. Because I finally understood something. the money wasn't what I'd lost. Time was. The birthdays, the holidays, the dreams I'd kept postponing, waiting for life to begin. It already had. I just wasn't living it. The weeks after I got home were quiet, quieter than they'd been in years. I booked my first real holiday, sat alone by the ocean, ordered dessert first. Not because I had a reason, simply because I wanted to. For the first time in years, I wasn't planning someone else's future. I was finally living my own. A few months later, my mother called. We talked for almost 20 minutes. Not once did she ask for money. Then, just before hanging up, she said, "You've been different." I smiled. "Mom, I'll always help when I can, but I can't carry everyone anymore. I have dreams too." She was quiet. Then she whispered, "I didn't know you felt that way." For the first time, I believed her. Not every family sets out to take advantage of the person who gives the most. Sometimes, gratitude quietly becomes expectation, and expectation becomes normal. Life slowly changed. For a long time, I thought this story was about money. Now I know it was really about boundaries. Helping the people you love is a beautiful thing, but love should never require you to lose yourself. The people who truly love you should still recognize your worth, even when you have nothing left to offer except your presence. Because one day, you'll have to live with the life you chose, or the one you kept postponing for everyone else. So let me ask you something. Do you think Amara made the right decision? Should she have kept helping her family, or should she have walked away completely? I genuinely love to know what you think. Share your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one. And if you enjoy emotional stories about family, love, betrayal, healing, and the courage to choose yourself, subscribe to Tales by She. Every week, we tell stories that don't just entertain, they leave you with something to think about. Until the next story, remember this: never lose yourself while trying to save everyone else. And remember, your story matters too.